All right, welcome back. So we're going to talk about the Russian team again. And I'm going to say this straight out, yes. Where Kucherov should have been, I had Kuznetsov. I forgot about the ban with Kuznetsov. And for Kucherov, he didn't play a game last year, so the list that I used to come up with all these names, trying not to miss anybody, Kucherov wasn't listed. Didn't play a single regular season game last year. So it was just one of those honest omissions. I went through other lineups that people have projected as well to try to get guys that, maybe get missed. I also wanted to make a point of talking about Datsyuk and why. But as soon as people load up the video, they look at the list, and then the comment section is just complete and total horror show. And I've been through this for years, and I know that when there's one issue with the board, I'm better off to just refilm it, just delete it and refilm it, because it will not end. Even if I change the title, which I did, even if I'm answering comments, which I was, that it won't end. There is no end. People will come back to videos years later and still say, well, this video, it doesn't matter because you put this wrong item on the board. When I did the season previews, it's one of the reasons why with season previews, I no longer try to project out the lines and have fun. I used to enjoy projecting out the lines, but then I would post a video of a season preview, and there would be comments where people were legit angry at my line projections, legit angry at who I'd left off, legit angry about which rookies I didn't include as one of the top prospects for that season. So I've tried to make it so that it's as vague as possible when I'm doing the previews, which is this too. I'm trying to make this as vague as possible, because if I try to, put together the lineups and everything, again, it's going to be the same thing of you can't have, that's not right. And then I feel like the idea of the preview videos, and of this as well, is to have the debate over, okay, so what do the rosters look like? What are our expectations here? And when you get hung up in who's going to be in the top 6, who's going to be in the top 4, and when you get hung up on just that, it sort of takes away from the point of it. So I try my best to make sure that the comments and that the discussion we're having is more along the lines of the general idea of who's going to make it and who's not. And with the Russians, it's tough because the Russians will pick guys from the KHL. The Russians will pick some older players. The Russians will pick some guys that we don't expect, like Pavel Datsyuk. There's a reason Datsuk's on the board. 2014, he's on the team. He's the team captain. They didn't do great at those Olympics. They finished 5th in Sochi. So the desire to make up for that is huge, and I would expect that they will at least consider Datsyuk, which I haven't seen anything saying that he's retired from the KHL, and his KHL numbers and the highlight reel stuff we saw from him last year show he can still play. And there was some real traction to the idea that maybe he could come over and play in the NHL again for the Wings at some point. Would I be surprised if next year he comes over at age 44 and plays for the Wings? No. If there's anybody who can play until he's 50 in the National Hockey League, Datsyuk might be the guy, because his defense is really good. His leadership is fantastic. He is capable of doing a little bit of everything. And then the offense is just a bonus. So Artemi Panarin's on the board. Now, I understand that people look at his politics and say, oh, he won't be invited. I think the Russians want to win gold medal. Artemi Panarin on the wing is a very, very good player. And I think that politics should get set aside for an Olympics. And you should send your best players on that roster. So I'm not taking Panarin off the board, because I really think that the Russians are going to want to win a gold medal more than anything, which will include not caring about the political side of it, because I guarantee not every name on this board disagrees with Artemi Panarin. They just may not say it out loud. But not everybody disagrees with Artemi Panarin. Kirill Kaprizov is on the board. May end up being pushed down because he's younger, which is why Podkolzin's not on the board, because I don't think Podkolzin has much of a chance of making it onto this roster unless he somehow was able to get in there as a center, which I can't see happening. But Kaprizov, I have an asterisk next to his name. I think he probably ends up in the top 6. Buchnevich should make the roster as well, right? Goal scorer. Lots of goal scoring on the wings. The goal scoring down the middle is going to be tricky, but the goal scoring on the wings is there. You have Alex Ovechkin. His obsession is getting a gold medal for the Russians. He has not got that yet, and therefore he is not satisfied. One of the reasons that the NHL is willing to go to the 2022 games, which they really don't want to go to, And if they can find a reason not to go, they'll find it. Ovechkin has basically stated, if I have to just go, I'll go. I don't care. If it's the regular season, oh well, I'll go over and play in the Olympics. I don't care. Is basically the attitude he's had towards it. Now, I know that softened in 2018 and it didn't happen. But at some point in time, he's going to look and say, this might be my last chance. And this year could very well be his last chance to get gold with the Russian team. Andrei Svechnikov, probably not top 6, with Kucherov being thrown on there now. And so we'll see. But again, if any of these guys can convert to center, they're going to need a second-line center, and we'll see what they do. Denis Gurianov, good goal scorer out of Dallas. We'll see if he makes the roster, what they do. Nikita Kucherov will be on the roster. And you would think with Kucherov, Panarin, Kaprizov, and Ovechkin as the 4 top wingers. And okay, if Panarin's not going to be there, I'll say Svechnikov ends up in that top 4 instead. And then you're still looking at 4 guys that could put the puck in the back of the net. A lot of pressure on Evgeny Malkin, who was in that 2014 games. Evgeny Malkin, known for being a guy who gets hurt regularly. We're getting ready for the start of the regular season in a month, and Malkin's not going to be on the ice for the Penguins to start the regular season. So he's got to stay healthy, and he will be that linchpin down the middle. Played in the 2014 games. Valeri Nichushkin played in the 2014 games. Now, all these years later, Nichushkin is an excellent defensive bottom 6 guy. Now, Nichushkin's being on the 2014 team would tell you maybe Podkolzin ends up getting on here, but maybe one of the other young Russians does as well. And again, we'll see what they decide they're going to do. Evgeny Dadonov could very well make the team. Vlad Nemesnikov, because of the lack of depth down the middle, Nemesnikov may end up in there. Ilya Mikheyev, winger, probably not. Vlad Tarasenko, who was on the 2014 team. Vlad Tarasenko looking to have a bounce-back season in the NHL this year, and so we'll see what Vlad's able to do. Ivan Barbashev, center. So that's the thing. You got to find centers for this team, and that might be the weakness when you compare them to the other teams in this tournament. Vadim Shipachev. Shipachev, I think, could end up being that second-line center. Shipachev had a really rough time in Vegas, and no NHL teams were willing to acquire him after that. But he's excellent in the KHL, and this is going to be played overseas. So Shipachev, I think, makes the team and probably gets a prominent role. Alexander Radulov was on the 2014 team. He, of course, has to be healthy. And then we see what goes on there. And then what gets interesting is if Shipachev's there, do you put him with Nikita Gusev and do you put him with Ilya Kovalchuk? Kovalchuk, 38 years of age, was on the 2014 team, same as Radulov. But Gusev, Kovalchuk, Shipachev, do you put those 3 together? And how does that go? Gusev right now doesn't have a contract. I get the feeling he ends up back overseas. And we'll see what happens there. But Kovalchuk may very well end up on this team because he's a big name. But 38 years of age, it will be interesting to see whether or not he gets in there. Mikhail Grigorenko could. Absolutely could. Believe he's played for Team Russia before. Absolutely could get in there. And as I've said, Pavel Datsyuk, 43 years of age, but he's still Pavel Datsyuk. And might be that ace in the hole. Might be a situation where, hey, we need to shut down Sidney Crosby in the 3rd period. And then Datsyuk's the guy who's trying to blanket Crosby in the 3rd. We got to shut down Connor McDavid. Datsyuk, go out there and do your thing. And it's a tall order. It's a tough task, but I've learned over the years not to bet against Pavel Datsyuk. So that's your forward group. Let's get into the blue line where it is, honestly, it's a little bit thin. You've got Sergachev, excellent defenseman there. Ivan Provorov, so you got Mikhail Sergachev, Ivan Provorov, both very good defensemen. Dmitry Orlov has become a very good veteran defenseman for the Washington Capitals. The interesting thing is the only name on this board for the blue line who played in the 2014 games is Slava Voinov. Slava Voinov's career has continued. He's just not in the NHL. I would not be surprised to see him on the Russian team. You've got Nikita Zaitsev and Artem Zub, both of them out of Ottawa. Zub got better as the season went along. And he's not 20 years of age. He could very well end up on this team. He's older. He's got some experience. But Nikolai Knizhov from San Jose. Good defensive, physical defenseman. We'll see whether or not he makes the team. Vladislav Gavrikov could be one of those underrated players. With the names on the board, Nikita Zadorov probably gets into a top 4 role, but I wouldn't rule out Alexander Romanov either. I think that Romanov out of Montreal, I think Montreal's underestimated him a little bit. I think there were times during the playoff run and during the regular season where I thought Romanov should have had a bigger role. We may see that now in Montreal, and by the time the Olympics roll around, he may very well have played himself into consideration for a top 4 spot on the Russian team at the Olympics. So then we get into the goaltending, right? The goaltending, Andrei Vasilevskiy, starter, absolutely. Vasilevskiy may very well be called on to win some games facing 30-plus shots per game. This is a team that's going to score a bunch, or should score a bunch, right, with the goal scorers they have here. The blue line should be okay, but again, comparatively speaking with the blue lines from the other powerful countries in this tournament, like Sweden, Canada, even Finland, and the U.S., that's where there could be a problem, and that's why I think Vasilevskiy could face a lot of shots. Sergei Bobrovsky and Semyon Varlamov both played on the 2014 Olympic team, and so Bobrovsky and Varlamov might have an inside track, or do they? Because the question mark becomes, does experience in those last Olympics that the NHL went to work in their favor, or does it work against them? Do the Russians look at that 2018 team and say, you know what, we need to bring back as many players from this team as possible because we had a lot of success? That's the question mark. And then you've got some depth in net, where the depth on the blue line, I think, gets a little bit dicey. If somebody in that top 4 gets hurt, it could get really dicey. But the goaltending is ridiculous. You've got Ilya Sorokin, very good young goaltender in New York. You could have Sorokin and Varlamov. You've got Ilya Samsonov out of Washington. He's going to look for a bounce back year this year. Anton Khudobin out of Dallas, who I admit, Khudobin, very, very little chance he ends up making this team. 35 years of age, smaller goaltender, probably doesn't make it. And then you've got Igor Shesterkin, which, we'll see if Shesterkin maybe forces himself into a role here as well. There's some really good goaltending for the Russian team. Absolutely solid goaltending. And there's others I left off. There's others I left off at every spot on this board. But we'll see how it turns out. For Shesterkin, could be interesting if he fights his way into a spot. And if Bobrovsky didn't make it. Let's just say Bobrovsky didn't make the team. Right? So does that then cause Bobrovsky after the Olympic break to absolutely be on fire for Florida and play the way that they thought he would for that $10 million contract? We'll see. But it's going to be an interesting team to watch because, again, there are going to be names on that team that are not on this board because I still think they're going to go with some KHL guys. I'd be kind of surprised if they don't. And so we'll see. The Russian team is unpredictable. So, again, I'm going to have Panarin on this board because I think Panarin is one of the best Russian forwards. And that should be their main focus. Because if they decide, well, we just want to have people that, feel a certain way about things, the team could be way in over their heads. So we'll see what happens. And of course, there may be guys who end up backing out. There may be players who end up getting hurt between now and then. And rosters change. So again, this roster isn't the actual Olympic planned roster because there's way too many names on this board. And that's kind of by design. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.